Nothing that ever happens when you're somewhere you aren't supposed to be. It wasn't my fault. I was sitting at the stoplight and a guy pulled up next to me. He motioned for me to roll down my window. "You've got a low tire," he said. I told him thanks and pulled into the Walmart parking lot off to the right. I got out and looked. I could see a screw head embedded in the tire tread and air was slowly leaking out. Great. Now what? I decided to go in and get a can of that slime stuff. When I came back, I took the screw out. Big mistake. Now the air really started hissing out. I screwed it back in and got some air at the gas station in the parking lot. I was only 15 miles from home and I checked it several times. If it started getting too low, I put in the can of slime. There was a convenience store about 5 miles from home, and I could see the tire was getting pretty low in the driver's side mirror. I pulled in and they didn't have air. Time to test the slime. I put it in and some green goo, I guess they call it slime for a reason, came out but the hissing of escaping air stopped. I was just about to get back in my car when I noticed the pickup truck pull in. It was one of those giant ones with the huge tires. It sat up so high that you'd need a ladder to get in. I recognized the truck from somewhere. The door opened and a tall blonde guy got out. He had on cowboy boots and a huge belt buckle. I chuckled a bit, but that died about halfway out. The passenger door opened and a beautiful raven-haired woman hopped down. I definitely recognized her. It was Rachel, the woman I've been married to for the last 18 years. What the hell? I was parked over to the side and they never even noticed my car. It was the company car, one of those little box-shaped imports and not very noticeable, I guess. They were holding hands as they went into the store and she was laughing up into his face. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. All I could do was stand there like a fool. Now I remembered where I'd seen the guy before. He worked at the same company Rachel did. She was the office manager for a mental health clinic and he was one of the caseworkers. I'd seen the truck at their building. The question was, what was Rachel doing with him? I couldn't think of his name. Finally, it came to me, Jerry Garner. The question was, why wasn't Rachel at work? I was going to find out. I got back in the car and waited. He helped her in when they came out of the store, carrying cups of coffee. They'd warded off and I followed at a discreet distance. They drove to our house and he pulled into the garage. The door came down and I couldn't see anymore. I sat there for 30 minutes, but the thought of the tire made me nervous. I kept checking it, but if it was going down I couldn't see it. After 2 hours the door came up and they drove back past me. I held a file folder up in front of my face, but I don't think they would have noticed anyway. She was sitting right over against him and they were too busy looking at each other to notice anything else. Rachel didn't get off until 5 and it was 2:30. I'd have plenty of time. First, I'd have to go in and see what I could find. I had to pick Toby up at 4 and I had no idea what I was going to tell her. Toby was my 15-year-old daughter. I couldn't imagine what I was going to find inside, but maybe I'd get some answers. When I went inside, everything was quiet. I could hear the drip of that faucet I'd meant to fix in Toby's bathroom. That was the only sound aside from the whispering of the air coming from the air conditioner vents. I looked around, but I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. I checked upstairs. The bed had been changed. There were fresh sheets. My heart sank like a stone. I put my back against the wall and slid down to the floor. I felt numb. There seemed to be only one rational explanation. I must have sat there for 30 minutes. My mind was in freewheel mode. I couldn't seem to make any sense of my thoughts and I felt as if I'd been drugged. My stomach began to feel queasy and I got up and opened a Sprite. I felt hot and sweaty, so I went back to the bathroom. I fumbled in the vanity for a washcloth, wet it in the sink, and washed my face with cold water. After washing, I felt a little better. Then I noticed something. The floor of the shower was wet. They had taken a shower before going back to work. I wandered back out into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed in a daze. The bed that my wife and her lover had just vacated. I jumped up at that thought and looked at it in horror. This was the scene of the crime. I had no idea what I was going to do. Well, I was going to divorce Rachel. That went without saying. I was totally without a clue. I didn't know any lawyers. I had no idea how to proceed and I had to pick Toby out from school. Toby, what was I going to tell her? I made my way out to the car, feeling like I'd been drunk for 10 days straight. My head was throbbing and I looked like death warmed over. I was in no condition to drive, but I couldn't keep Toby waiting. I suddenly realized that she was the only thing in my life that I could really count on. My baby girl was going to be okay. I was going to have to see to that. Whatever I did, it was going to have to take her into account. When I pulled up in the line of cars, I could see her waiting at the school doors. She walked down the sidewalk toward the car. So beautiful it hurt my heart. Toby had her mother's hair and skin, dark and almost Mediterranean looking. She had the most spectacular eyes I'd ever seen. They seemed to have her mother's dark brown, shot through with gold and streaks of green. The doctor called them hazel, but I'd never seen anything like them. She was tall like me, all long honey brown legs and beauty. She opened the back door and threw in her backpack. When she got in, she slid across to kiss me and froze. Dad, what's wrong? She asked. Are you sick? Did something happen? Is Mom okay? What's wrong, Dad? Her voice was rising and there was a note of fear creeping in. I had to say something. I'm okay, kitten, I said. No one is hurt or sick or anything. I need to talk to you, Toby. Let's go to the park and just let me hold you and talk to you for a minute. Okay? Don't ask me any more questions until we get there. Okay? Okay, Dad, but you're kind of scaring me, she said. I know, kitten, but everything is going to be okay. I told her, hoping that it wasn't a lie. It only took us about 5 minutes to get to the park. I had pushed her on the swings 1,000 times. Rachel and I had both sat on the benches and watched her play on the equipment. Happier Times was that all my life was going to be just reminiscing about happier times. We walked to one of the benches and she held my hand, swinging her arms as we walked, just the way she had since she was a tiny little thing just able to walk. We sat down and I struggled with the words to begin. Just tell me, Dad, she said. I can handle it. Well, I'm not sure I can, I said. The story came tumbling out. I told her everything. Everything I'd seen, everything I was feeling. And the tears rolled down my cheeks like a river. She held my hand through it all. And when the fountain of words and feelings dried up, she snuggled up against me. It doesn't sound good, Dad, she said. We need to go home and ask Mom about it. I guess everything depends on what she tells us. I know it looks bad, but we don't know enough. We have to talk to her. I kissed the top of her head. My heart swelled with pride. My baby was so much braver than I was. She pulled out my hand until I stood up. Want to drive? I asked her, her eyes shone. She had just gotten her learner's permit. A cloud passed across those beautiful eyes as she thought, but it quickly passed. She drove carefully home, and Rachel's car was in the garage. This was it. She met us at the door with a hug and a kiss for each of us. Either she was an Oscar-winning actress, or I had misread the whole situation. You two want takeout tonight? She asked my treat. I think we just need to talk to you for a minute, Mom, Toby said. Okay. Is everything all right, baby? I don't know, Toby said. Let's find out. We went in, and I sat on the sofa beside Toby. That left Rachel to sit in that hideous chair she just had to have. What's up? She asked. There wasn't a single shred of concern on her features. How did your day go? I asked. She looked at me curiously. Just the usual, she said. One of the drug reps brought lunch from the onion bin. It was pretty busy and I hardly had a minute. Why are you asking that? So you were at the office all day, Toby asked. Of course, she said. What are all these questions?